Welcome to Equine Assisted World. I'm your host, Rupert Isaacson, New York Times bestselling author of The Horse Boy, The Long Ride Home and The Healing Land. Before I jump in with today's guest, I just want to say a huge thank you to you, our audience, for helping to make this happen. I have a request. If you like what we do, please like, subscribe, tell a friend. It really helps us get this work done. As you might know from my books, I'm an autism dad. And over the last 20 years, we've developed several equine-assisted, neuroscience-backed certification programs. If you'd like to find out more about them, go to newtrailslearning.com. So without further ado, let's meet today's guest. I am very honored and excited to have Russel Craig on today. He is an artist who is just beginning to explore the equestrian world, but has a lot to say and a lot to teach us about working with the foster system and kids in the foster system, and also inmates, and then also people who come out of jail and how they are going to rebuild their lives, and what can we as equine practitioners learn and offer, and how should we be approaching this. And this is slightly new territory for me because, of course, most of you who know my story know that predominantly I started with autism and then moved from there rather naturally into trauma and PTSD and veterans and so on, other neuropsychiatric conditions. But because this world of the foster system and incarceration and so forth is new to me, I, like anyone who is sane, would want to be mentored by the people who know this system from the inside, rather than coming at it with a series of opinions which are completely unfounded because it's outside my experience. And I think that this is true for all of us in the equine assisted world. The more we're mentored by the people who we are here to serve, the more likely we are to be able to serve them in the way that is actually beneficial. And if we don't look for that mentorship from the populations we serve, we're always going to be hampered and hamstrung. So, Russel, thank you so much for coming on the show. You are a successful artist now living between Philadelphia and the Wellington equestrian scene, which many of us know is it's sort of its own can of worms in many ways. So this is fascinating. And your story, of course, can inform us. So without further ado, welcome. And can you just tell us who you are, how you got here, and what we should know?
Well, I'd like to thank you before I begin for having me. And I'm just a guy coming from Philadelphia, had a rough start very early on. Oh, and I'm back and forth from Florida to New York, but I'm originally from Philadelphia, but I'm more like Florida, New York.
Okay.
And since about the age of 5 is when I was placed in the foster care system and was there for a number of years. I believe I was like 12 around the age when I like ran away from one of the placements that I was at. And I was in the group homes and all kinds of stuff all of my younger years. And then around like 12 or so, 12, 13 or so is when I like ran away. Then I just was like in the streets. And then with that comes like hustling and things like that, drug dealing, cocaine and things like that, smoking weed and things. And then I got locked up in a juvenile like lockup facility. I think I was like 14, just like kind of doing that in and out of that kind of situations for a hot second. And like 1920 is when I hit prison, real prison, and did a number of years. I did a total of 12 years in prison, not straight. On the last stay in prison, I did 7 years. So all through that time, I was always into art, even when I was like a kid. But when around the age of 12 and things, when I was like running the streets, I kind of like got away from art a bit. But once I went into the prison system, I reconnected with art because I use art as like a way to block out like the situation, like, or being in that kind of environment and things. And then it just allowed me to like escape and have a focus and not be like caught up in anything. Like I didn't even participate in like a lot of the day-to-day activities like the basketball. And I would lift weights and things like that sometimes, but I wasn't really into the like the day-to-day normal routine. And it was other people locked up that was also like me that was like really into whatever their interest was, their craft. Like some would work out really deep, really like intensely be into it. And you had a lot of guys that like studied law really good to the point where a few of them got out and was working with law firms and things like that. And then you had like a number of artists. You had some like really amazing artists. Like for an example, this one artist, he would make like these sculptures out of soap, and they would like look so crazy, like you wouldn't even know that that was soap if he wouldn't have told you they was soap. He did this one that was like this big eagle, and it was like I don't know how he took different pieces of soap and made it one thing so like big and sturdy and things like that. It was pretty interesting. I don't even know his methods of putting that together, but that's just like giving you an example. So myself, I was just doing a lot of portraits and things like that because me coming from like the foster care situation, I never had like family. Because you could be like in a foster care setting and still have like family where you go visit or they maybe visit you or whatever. But I like didn't really have a family dynamic like really like that at all. And then the family that I did have was all like in the streets and things like that. It was like into negative things. So what I would get with them, you would get reintroduce or back in the circle of like the streets and things that's like negative that can end you up in prison or worse. So art was like a way to like really like just escape that in a lot of different ways, like mentally and also like actually like literally like separating me from those worlds. And then if we want to fast forward to like and then after I got out, I started doing murals in Philly before I moved to New York and truly like blessed. I think people should understand too, like especially like now it continues. It continues. I won't even get into recent things that happen, but I'll just generally try to explain that when you get on like the path you're supposed to be on, like things start happening. And then it's like you can manifest things, you can have plans, and then it'd be like some things that come happen that be beyond you. And I am a living like testimony of that. Because once we get into the portion of this conversation when we want to talk about like how I started to get success with the art, like some of it just was like you'd be amazed at like how things just you couldn't even plan it. You just be on that path and be like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do this art. I want my art to have some kind of intentions with like inspiring and helping other people. Also take care of myself with I don't have to do anything that's breaking the law or anything like that. And also following my passion. That's the path. And then other things come your way. That's like beyond myself is how I would explain it. So yeah, like when I got out of prison, I was doing murals in Philadelphia to the point where I was like on the news, got invited to the White House, all kinds of stuff. And things was happening like pretty fast. It didn't take like a long time because I had these like dreams and goals and things like that, aspirations and manifestation type mindset when I was in prison. Like I had the vision. I told people like and one of the projects that I did when I got out of prison was on the African American Museum, and I called it Prophesize because I basically like, and that still was early on, but for at that around that time, I'm like, oh, I got a mural on the African American Museum in Philadelphia. It was like a big thing for me to be coming like from the streets and like have no kind of connection to anything art related, and to be recognized and to be given that kind of opportunity, which is crazy. Then around that time, I did a show with the Democratic National Convention in 2015, and it was all these like star artists involved, and I was like a no name, like no, never heard of me, and it was already crazy that somehow I was able to be in participating in that show. But then also was like my pieces was really well received by the people, like, and it happened quite a few times too, where my work was really appreciated, like beyond my expectation. Like I didn't think that people would like the work like that. Or another example here in Wellington, like a lot of people love the work and they're coming from another, kind of background, like a different world. And for them to appreciate the work and appreciate the story of like how I triumphed over like streets and no family and prison and all that kind of stuff. And to be to this level where I'm in quite a number of museums, permanent collections and things like that, Emmy Award winning for a documentary that I was in. And it just like the list kind of goes on and keep continuing because there's new stuff coming. So yeah, and then I just like basically keep my focus on that and just keep pushing, never get content. You know what I mean? There's always room for improvement and just keep like I was gonna do some work last night And I'm glad I didn't rush it. I was going to like rush some stuff. I had the initial idea, and then I'm like, let me pump this out. It was a lot of work to do, a lot of things, deadlines and stuff, a lot of stuff going on right now. But then I had to slow it down, and really think about like what to do, So like that's another thing too. People should like take their time. You don't want to procrastinate and like, take too much time, but then you also don't want to rush things because when I set with ideas and things, I really had a clearer vision of like what to execute. So like, take a moment to gather yourself and like I don't want to say slow walk it because you don't want to go too slow either because you got to seize moments and stuff like that. But it just go with the flow, just be in the flow, get on a proper path, and like when we had that conversation and y'all brought to my attention that y'all do horses therapeutic, like work with the formerly incarcerated art individuals and also like foster kids, it's like was right up my alley because I come from those two backgrounds, and then now here I am in an equestrian space. I have a gift right here where somebody gave me a crystal horse, one of my collectors or whatever. It's really nice. But it's like this is the world we in now. So it's like it's awesome to have the opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to like what we could put together and like traveling to the like places you be and like really showing the world like this. And then it is really the opportunity to take the art and bring it to people that probably wouldn't reach. And I'm saying particularly my art and the things that I'm like trying to highlight. And then we have like the horses and then the work that we doing. So I really think, and then the different cities and countries and things we're going to be in with this, I really am excited about all of this. So I'm glad that in my path that everything that I experienced, ups and downs of it. Then another thing I've been noticing a lot of like when things been going bad, it'd be like a good part to it. I used to always lean towards like, oh, I can't believe this happened, blah, blah, blah. Right. But then it'd be like, look at what if you really take a minute and look at everything, it'd be like a reason. Sometimes something crazy will happen to like stop you from going a certain place. Like maybe you was not supposed to go to this place or something will come and sabotage your whole thing. And I'll be looking at the big picture and it's like sometimes things be aligned that way. So with all that being said, I go back to what I was saying about like my path, like it's really feeling good to be like where we are. And I'm like very excited about things in the future and things we could put together. And not just
Right.
us.
So absolutely. I just want to sort of, for the listeners who are wondering what we might be referring to there, just so full disclosure, listeners and watchers. So Russell and his friend Will and our own amazing Leanna Tank, those of you who know her or don't know her, you should look for our recent podcast with her, are talking about adapting what we do with Horseboy and Movement Method and Tackeen towards a project with foster kids, people in incarceration, and people coming out of incarceration, because this seems to be kind of a funnel, the foster care to the school to the prison funnel, which I think a lot of people are aware of and needs to be addressed. But without the right mentorship, there's no chance. But with Russell coming in here, I think we have the guidance to do that. So it's quite exciting. But Russell, I just want to ask you, so your world was not an equestrian world at all. And when I met you by chance, well, through mutual acquaintance a couple of months ago in Wellington, I was thinking, what are you doing in Wellington? Because there's many different types of equestrian environment out there in the USA, but Wellington is known for being the sort of height of privileged East Coast money and the international sports scene. It's not known as a place for therapy or good works, particularly, although there are a lot of philanthropists there. It's known really for sport and wealth. So I was intrigued that you were there in a studio. And when I connected with your work and looked at your work, I was like, wow, this is really good. I mean, you were talking about, oh, well, it seemed quite surprising perhaps, or out of nowhere, that your work got recognized. But when I was looking at it in the studio, I was like, well, I can see why this work is recognized because it's just top-notch art. And for anyone who's, listening or watching, you should look up Russell Craig's art. It's phenomenally good. And I'm a snob because my mum's an artist. So I won't say something is good if I don't think it is. I'll just politely talk about something else. But Russell, your art is really, really good. And your equestrian art is really, really good. And when you're drawing and painting horses, it's as if you had a knowledge of horses and an eye for a horse, which you didn't grow up with. But for me as a horseman, I'm like, wow, he really sees the movement and the expression of the horse. This is interesting to me. So why are you here in this equestrian space? What has drawn you in? Well, yeah, well, it's intriguing to me.
Well, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about like there's been quite a few situations in which like some things happen and it don't be like my plans. Like I had no knowledge of like Wellington. It was my connection to Will Tamita that I met a number of years ago in Palm Beach with New Wave. I was invited to come do a speech. And around that time, I was doing like a lot of traveling and doing like panel talks and things like that at like Harvard, Yale, number of places. Like I can't even give you the whole rundown. But yeah, it was, reached out to me. It happened to be, I just yesterday got all my stuff off the World Trade Center that was my studio in New York for 3 years. And it's just been really, really deep to like for this transition, like connecting this to like your question of like how I got here. And like now I'm like really here. I'm
Mm.
like, I got with Will. We had a show. First, we had a show in
Will
New York.
owns the gallery in
Y-
Wellington, where you are sitting right now, talking to us
Yeah,
from. Yeah.
yeah. He's my gallery representation. Him and his partner John,
Hmm.
his partner. And yeah, like we did the Armory show. He was in the area in New York, was conducting some business, and I popped in his head, which is interesting because we haven't seen each other in years. But and then also like somehow he remembered that Silver Arts residency in the World Trade Center Building 3 was like a thing. So he like, oh, I wonder if Russell's still there, which was interesting because it was only supposed to have been a year residency in which I winded up doing 3. So when he showed up, it could have been a strong possibility that I wouldn't have been there. He messaged me too and DM'd on Instagram, and I'm like, yeah, I'm up here now. And I was working on my Prison Door series. This is like an example, this one right here. I was working on one of those. It was when I was like beginning that work. And he was like, this should be exhibited. And he was like, he was already having plans on trying to like, well, he got the gallery established and it was like a new gallery here in Wellington, but his reach goes outside of just Florida. So like, that's why he was like in New York handling business and then happened to like think of me and wanted to see what I was up to. And I was working on some work that wasn't really being shown like that. Beth DeWoody from Palm Beach, she's a big collector, and she had collected the piece and exhibited in Palm Beach at the Bunker, where she has an exhibition every year that's like really well known, really well respected. So being collected by her was really helpful. And then we did a show in the Armory. He was like, yo, this work should be shown. Is you with anybody representing all that? I'm like, no, I'm like been doing it for myself for the last few years. I had representation in Chelsea for a hot second and things didn't work out and kind of fell apart. My galleries and you had issues in which you couldn't continue the gallery. It also had a space in Aspen, Colorado. And when that like kind of fell apart, I kind of just was on my own with it. And him showing up, I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it. I've been making these works, just in case, just to be making them. And that's how I was inspired to do. Where it didn't really have no place that where the work was going, or I didn't have any representation. So we had Armory is a respected art exhibition that happens in New York every year. So we put together a show and it went really well, sold everything, and it was well received. Like the people, the visitors and things like that really connected with the work that you see right here. It was, similar, all the
That's a
pieces.
prison door behind you, right? A cell door. Yeah.
Yeah, you're abstracted.
Mm.
Solitary confinement series is more abstracted. And then the more common prison doors have like a slot where I'll have like a face that's representational of like an inmate being behind on bars. And then also I'm working on like some new works where I'm like touching on how not only, let's say you didn't go through the prison system like I did literally, but we be in our own like prisons. You could be trapped in like a job you don't want to be in. You could be trapped in like a relationship or marriage that's like feel like a prison. So it's like different ways mentally you could be in chains. So with trauma and things like that, and mental health and things like that can be issues that can be holding you back. So like I'm like making the work also touch on those like examples of that you could possibly be in prison in different ways.
Mm.
But then to bring it around, making it long winded, but it's like then we had a follow up show here because we did well in the New York show. And then we had a show here in Wellington. And then the people from Wellington came out and like supported. A few of them like looked me up and they feel like my story is like amazing, like how I triumphed over like the things that I went through. And I feel that way too. Like recently I really was putting thought to that of like, wow, I did really, because in survival and just like trying to keep it going and making things happen and just, being an artist and trying to maintain and continue success as an artist and also, for a living and things like that. I didn't get too caught up in like I made it. Like I don't be really in my mind like that too much. But like lately I was thinking like, and then I've been keeping it pretty consistent. But I told you it'd be beyond me. It's like you do what you do, and then also be forces that's beyond you, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. And then genuine. You got to be genuine and you got to be thankful. And I've been concentrating on the thankful. Remember, I told you I was like, when bad things would happen, I would like really concentrate on it. And I don't have it mastered. From time to time, I get aggravated and stuff like
Don't
that.
we all? Yeah.
I'm way better than I used to be, where I shift my mental. I be like, I stay thankful and in a good spirit about the good stuff. Like I shift my focus to
Mm.
what's good. And then I also look at like, well, how is this beneficial? Even though this is like a problematic situation, I try to look at like where's the good in it? And with all
Where's
that,
the awesome here? That's a quote which
yeah,
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 found
yeah. No,
useful.
it really works. It really works because then it helps you to see that like it's even like a good and a bad, if it makes sense. When I was young, it's Kona feeling that. Like that's right. That's right. Kona Kona knows. Every time I'm having a conversation and they get to a deep part, Kona show love. Like, yeah, that's right. And that connects to them horses. Like you gotta connect with them. You can't just be jumping on somebody's horse and you don't have no kind of like respect for each other or like an understanding. And I'm like new to this. And but even when first let me finish up, you was like how I got the wedding plan because then I was about to get into like the horses and because you had said
Yeah, and
about
that's
like
obviously the next question I want to ask you is what's your impression and what is your relationship with horses? But let's finish up how you got here and then let's go there.
so we had a show in Armor. I'm in Wellington in the clubhouse gallery, and we have two spaces. So we in this space right here it has art and things like that, but this is more of like the space where we had our meeting and things. And the other space is like primarily gallery, and that's where we had the show. Did really well, connected with the people. They'd been inviting me to come in the other houses and they got houses in other countries and all that stuff, and it's just been really good, like really well received. And then it was them, like Will and others from Wellington was like, yo, you should just move here. Because I was thinking of like, as I get more successful I wanted to move to Brazil and still do work in America, have my work shipped and, paint while I'm there and just do what I do. But I wanted to have visit Brazil and I really liked it. And the people who I shared that with that I wasn't thinking of that, they was like, no, you should move here to Florida. And it basically was, unanimous how everybody was like, you need to get out of New York. Like it was just, I was in New York for 7 years and I love New York. I didn't have like no big problems that was like so crazy. Like Philly was like a problematic like city and I needed to grow and move on. And then, I went to New York and a lot of great things happened. And then it just was time. It's just how it works. And it's good to be, you need to be in tune. So, when to go with the flow, when of like what's next and things. So what was next was here, Wellington, Florida. And was like, I've been like called here.
Mm.
Sometimes you be summoned, so I'm
So
here.
here you are, right? And you're now surrounded by horses and horsey people. And you're looking at horses, you're putting horses in your art. What are you seeing? What's talk to us about it through the lens of you.
I mean, I don't want to get all weird, so try to follow me because I'm very spiritual. You know what I'm saying? So,
As weird as you want.
like I see the horse absolutely is like a spirit animal. Like it's here in the physical realm, but it's a spiritual aspect to the horse. It's to like everybody and everything, but specifically like, and then also I see coming from like my experience, like on like freedom when you see the horse, especially like it running free, how powerful it is and things like that. Or then how kind it can be. And then sometimes they can be not unkind. I mean, things like that. And it's just like, and then it's aspects of them being like in captivity the
Mm,
same way I've been. So I would hope to like, and then you have situations where there are some horses not being treated well when things like that. So that what comes to my mind. I'm always thinking about like how the similarities. And then I had explained to you when we was in our meeting about like how, oh, a private prison had was built in Virginia, and they shipped us from Pennsylvania. They shipped a number of us to this private prison, and they used horse trailers that they converted into transportation vehicles. So then that really like helps me to connect with like how some horses are like in captivity, because I was in the same trailers in which, and then they treated me like an animal in us that they transported like that, because I don't know why with the prison system being like a multi-billion-dollar business that they couldn't get like buses and things like that. And they did have, but they had more than one. So some of them was buses. But why wasn't it all buses? They had some that was like horse trailers converted into transportation, which was like kind of strange to me, you know. But Wellington helped me to look at the horses like more in a positive, because everything out here is like pretty beautiful, especially like seeing the jumping. Will, he plays polo. We went to some polo games and things like that. I haven't had a chance to see the dressage yet, but I wanted to. And it's just like a beautiful environment. So you observe, go out there, observe it. And then like I try to like make that connection, because with all my work, not just the horses, you need to have like your soul, like a part of myself is in it, right? And then you have to capture the spirit, like the soul, the spirit of the work. Cause then when you do that and be in like try to be like in a positive space, vibrate positive, and it connects to the work. Then I went to go see, I went to the MoMA, and there's an artist, Jack Whitten. He passed away, but he's one of my favorite artists, and his work was like so strong. And like I could feel the energy. So I'm talking about overwhelmingly, not kind of, you know, sometimes you have these little feelings or whatever, you get these little like signals or whatever that want to call it. But like with his work, it was very strong. And then it taught me, I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing here. Like, and I kind of had an understanding, but feeling his power, I was like, oh yeah. So so with that, anything that I do with the horses, you want to like you sit with, that's just like I was talking earlier, and I was like I was gonna do a thing, and I was gonna kind of rush into it because I had an initial idea, and I'm like, let me get started on this, get it done, present it to this person. And I said, nope, nope, nope. I need to take a minute and really figure it out. Really like and then when you quiet yourself, quiet your mind, I guess you could say like meditation kind of to a level of that, the thoughts and the ideas come even stronger. And that's what like places like Florida, Aspen, I really like Brazil and things like that. Like some of these places, I think the spiritual energy is even stronger. In cities and stuff like that, like New York and Philadelphia, it's like a lot of distraction. Like, and it's things that don't. But when you hear with these palm trees and stuff like that, and and the beach and all that kind of stuff, it helps you to like hear loud. You can hear it clearer when you quiet things down, and then that's when the inspiration come and the visions come, and then you put it into the work, and that connects
what,
to the.
what do you feel the horses are communicating to you there in Wellington? I mean, you drew a parallel between incarceration and horses, in stalls. You talked about horses running free, but of course, horses running free is not what one's going to see really in Wellington. That said, it's ambiguous because there's lots of horses that really enjoy their job there. And there's horses that don't. There's horses that are very well treated. There's horses that aren't. It's one sees all of this. What do you what's the predominant thing that comes through to you from the horse world as you see it?
Well, I can't like get into like I'm some expert at things like that. I'm pretty new here, and I'm pretty new to horses, but I can kind of answer that, because when you ask me that question, I go into when I had was invited to someone's stable. I went to quite a few of them, but it was a particular one that I remember, because you said, what are the horses communicating to you? So when I was walking in this stable, I was noticing without words, that's what I'm saying, is really deep. Like, I don't know. And I know I'm not the only one. There are other people that's in tune like that and can get, especially them people that's really that know horses and been around them for years and things like that. And but some of them got horses and been around there for years and not connected. I walked through and I could feel the horses like acknowledging me. That's what I said. I don't want to get weird, but like, but try to follow me for the people that's like, this guy's crazy. The horses was like, it's like, who is this guy? Like, and it was like personality in each horse. Like, so then there's one horse at the end, like he like looked and was like not happy, like didn't even want to, like he wasn't like the other people, the other horses, the other people. I was gonna say people, the other
Only people.
horses,
Yeah.
the other horses was like curious. They was giving like a kind of curious, and I didn't want to like just touch, and I kind of like slowly go to them and see if they, is okay with you like petting them and things like that. But this one horse was like aggravated to the point where like they're not like bucking or acting crazy, but the energy was like not interested that I was there. And it seems like, and it wasn't just about me showing up. It was like that's where the horse was at on some stuff, like probably didn't like the environment being captured, being like in captivity, being like trapped, being in that little space or whatever. Like some people might think that the horse is okay with that, but I feel like that one horse wasn't okay. So it'd be stuff like that. And then I can go deeper into a different situation where I was around somebody that had a whole lot of cows and it was real deep thing happened there, but I won't get into that. We could stay on the horses for now.
I think we'd like to know about the cow situation. I'll tell you why. My biggest mentor in my work is Dr. Temple Grandin, who is autistic and had a lot of her breakthroughs of communication with cows. And I think a lot of people who are listening to this show know that really these big sentient beings that we work with, whether it's horses, cattle, dogs, wildlife, it's all the field of consciousness, right? So please do tell us about the experience with the cattle because I think there's stuff we can learn from it all.
I won't go too deep because I can't, but
Okay,
I'll try to just direct,
summarize. Yeah.
yeah, folks in a direction, and they have to do their own research, and I don't want to go too deep with what happened because they're not going to believe me. So I was this one of the people who I should have mentioned Agnes earlier. Agnes Gunn, art patriot, used to be head of the MoMA, sold Roy Lichtenstein for 165 million, and really did a lot of work that helped formerly incarcerated folks. And this she helped a lot of people and really big in the art world. So I was on her property, one of her properties, upstate New York, and she had a whole lot of cows. So as I like approach the cows, because of the same way how I do you see horses, hey, like go, we would be with the horses down here, and we will go down to where they be, where they jump and stuff. We'd be like down where they at, like because we know the riders and things. So it was kind of like that kind of a situation where you like really close. We would go close. So I'm like approaching them and just thinking, oh, cows, yeah, this is cool. Hey, happy on some. That's where my mind was at, but and I'm trying to be careful with my words when I explained how I went through the horse stable and I could tell that the horses was like curious to who I was, the majority of them, and then was that one that was unhappy. The cows was a little different, and the energy with them not liking their situation was very strong, and also they were knowledgeable of like that they would be that they're going to be slaughtered. And that's all I can go a little deeper than that, but I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
get too weird. But that's what I'll say.
Okay.
They have knowledge that and it's very similar to like where we were in prison and those in prison on death row. And I kind of just leave it there. And I'm not
Okay.
talking about what I think. I'm not talking about what I think. It was a weird thing that happened that I'm not going to speak because you got to be
Mm-hmm.
careful
Mm-hmm.
what you
Yeah,
say.
well, I think most of us that work with animals really closely have had these types of experiences. So I think anyone who's listening would empathize with this, that it goes beyond the rational. There is a communicative field, in which all living beings are. communicated, and one can tune that out or one can go towards it. But one of the lovely things about working with animals, as we know, is it tends to bring us into contact with it. And so, yeah, I think what you described there is something which will be not unfamiliar for a lot of people. You'd also talked to me before in a previous conversation about how sometimes when you were being moved around in prison with shackles, that sort of thing, that you felt that there were some sort of similarities with how people might move horses around and that sort of thing. And of course, I, as a horse person, if I'm got a halter on a horse and I'm leading a horse somewhere, there's nothing in my mind about this horse being in any way incarcerated. I mean, I might be leading him out to let him loose in the pasture, for example. And at the same time, what I have to acknowledge as a horseman is that the horse is only partly master of its own destiny. I am the arbiter as the owner of the horse, and no matter how much I respect that horse, it's under my care, and so I have to be very careful, to listen to what the desires of that horse are. To if the horse is saying no today, to listen to that. And for example, I wasn't brought up with that at all. I was brought up with if the horse seems to having a negative reaction to something you want him to do, you must make the horse do it. And then I realized later on in life, no, that's absolutely completely backwards. If the horse is saying clearly no about something, you must listen and ask yourself, why is this horse saying this? And what do I need to change? What's the horse telling me here? This could even be something that might save my life or the life of the kid that I'm working with. And if the horse feels that sense of agency that they could say no, interestingly, once I started to respect that more, I found that horses showed up saying yes much more because they could say no. But that was not something that I was taught growing up. So I'm sort of intrigued by your sense of this. You're there in the sport world in Wellington. The horses are there to perform. They're bought expensively. If they don't perform well in the competition, they go. They're moved on to something else. What's your feeling when you're there, having been moved around yourself in shackles, that sort of thing? What do you feel are the similarities? What do you feel is not similar? What's your experience?
No, I would say you're pretty much hitting it. Like it's these situations where it's very similar to I had a painting when you showed up that I made, and it was supposed to be representational of like it was of a horse and a rider, and then the rider's like halfway. You can't see the rider, only like parts of the rider. And the horses and the head of the horse is like in the focus, and the horse was supposed to be representational of me and my like experience in being in captivity. So I actually did a piece. Now the problem with that piece was, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's a great painting," blah blah blah, right? But then it was like kind of reading as like just an equestrian piece. So I felt like I didn't execute it properly to convey what I really wanted to like speak on about like how there's a connection between like my experience and being in captivity and the horse. But then and I also wanted to like highlight freedom as well because like the horse runs and the rider runs fast, and with that is like freedom, your hair through the wind through your hair and things like that of the horse and stuff like that. And the same way when you like if you in a convertible and you riding fast, it's like this good feeling you feel of like coasting through the wind. But as far as that piece, I think it just was like people just seeing, oh, it's just a horse. So it didn't have I think a strong enough execution in which that I kind of got across what I was like thinking, but that thinking came from how I see it. And then when you ask me like what I think about here in Wellington, like I haven't been here like long enough, but because everything that I see here is pretty much like is a good time, like and it looks good. And it seems like it feels like the horses is like pretty much well taken care of overall. And then once somebody was I was in a conversation with one of the people that have horses and things, and they was telling me like how some horses be in terrible situations. And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna make work about that. Like I'm glad you told me that." And it's like she was like, wait a minute, but you don't need to be no activist for the horses because like a lot of these horses live better than you." And I'm like, "Well, you just got finished telling me how bad things are, and then when I say I should do something about this, or make some work touching on these issues that you bring into my attention, but you're gonna tell me not to. It was kind of weird. You know what I mean? So I guess it's like that. It's just like a mixture. But here I have only really experienced and seen like a lot of positivity and like things
Yeah.
being.
And I would say that that is the case. I mean, the sport world of horses is taking a lot of heat right now because of some bad actors, but the vast majority of people who are involved in the scene treat their horses very well and are very concerned for their horses. And at the same time, I think there's need for an evolution. There's a need for our relationship with all animals to begin to shift, but that's not going to happen overnight. And so you're in a very interesting place there. You know what? One of our jobs in the equine assisted world, or the equine therapy world, is giving second careers to horses when they have finished their sport life. You know, if you take it like to a human and let's say you're an NFL player, you know, and what are you going to do? You only have a certain number of years you're going to do that for. What are you going to do for the rest of your life after that? And if you've taken a certain number of injuries in the course of your sport career, mental, physical, emotional, how are those going to be rehabbed and turned into strengths in that second career? Or will you not have a second career? You're just going to, snort up half of Peru because you can't get the high that you got on the football field anymore. Or all of these things can come into play. And horses, of course, are bred by the million for the sport world, and then are sort of brought through at the end of it, sometimes in rather early retirement, because it's quite demanding on their bodies. And other horses go on to do a ripe old age within the sport world because they're really well looked after. One sees everything, good and bad, in there. But it's intriguing to me, because obviously I'm often dealing with the horses that are coming out and needing rehab, and then looking for that second career for them, which is often quite a meaningful one, helping people. Now, tell me, if you had been taken out to an equine assisted place when you were a young foster kid, what would you think would have been the most useful type of experience you could have had that could have begun to affect your outcomes? I'm not saying that anyone who's running an equine assisted service can necessarily keep a kid from the streets out of jail, but nonetheless, what experiences do you think would be the optimal ones? If you were guiding an equine facilitated place now, looking back at yourself as a child, what would you want to see?
What I would want to see. I mean, when you asked me that question, like if I was like back then, me coming up, and if I was participating in a program like that, to me it would be just like amazing. Because first of all, you have people that care about you to be, there with you, and also caring for like the horses. Just that caring environment, and being around those spirit animals, like, would just have been so crazy. Would have been like, just like, and then you young, so you know how with age we really start to realize the details of how bad things can be. Like, we know bad, good and bad as kids, but like not as much as when we get older. So it would have just been like a really joyous experience for myself. And who knows what kind of direction I would have went, because there's certain things that was really important for like my life to make me be like where I'm at today. So that could have possibly had me in a whole different kind of a way. You know what I mean, to be connected to something like that. Cause see, in my upbringing, I was like there was no, it was, I don't want to say no, there was very few opportunities to like, we went to like the zoo sometime and shit like that, but like not like something that's hands on and like you really working and then you really getting to understand. That's what, for an example. I can't wait to come see with you, because you was like, you explained like how you work with horses that are now like retired from the sport and things like that. And I would love to like feel and like experience, but then also feel old horses, like, because I know it's a different energy of like, oh, I'm like, I run freer. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
not like same kind of a. I can't wait to see, because I can already, the way you explaining it is a different thing. So I don't even know if I'm properly answering the question about like
Well,
how.
I think you gave me a clue there.
If you're in the equine assisted field, or if you're considering a career in the equine assisted field, you might want to consider taking one of our 3 neuroscience-backed equine assisted programs. Horseboy Method, now established for 20 years, is the original equine assisted program specifically designed for autism, mentored by and developed in conjunction with Dr. Temple Grandin and many other neuroscientists. We work in the saddle with younger children, helping them create oxytocin in their bodies and neuroplasticity in the brain. It works incredibly well. It's now in about 40 countries. Check it out. If you're working without horses, you might want to look at movement method, which gets a very, very similar effect, but can also be applied in schools, in homes. If you're working with families, you can give them really tangible exercises to do at home that will create neuroplasticity when they're not with you. Finally, we have taquine equine integration. If you know anything about our programs, you know that we need a really high standard of horsemanship in order to create the oxytocin in the body of the person that we're working with, child or adult. So this means we need to train a horse in collection, but this also has a really beneficial effect on the horse's well-being. And it also ends your time conflict where you're wondering, oh my gosh, how am I going to condition my horses and maintain them and give them what they need, as well as serving my clients? Taquine equine integration, aimed at a more adult client base, absolutely gives you this.
You said hands-on and you said care. Do you think that if you were running a foster care, a program for foster care kids with horses, would you put an emphasis on hands-on care, the kids doing hands-on care for the horse?
Oh, for sure, for sure. And then like myself, like, it'd be nice if we can put something together because like it'd be hands on. I would be hands on, and in a sense of like with my experiences and things like that, it'd be different from somebody with no experience. They can even be a caring person. It's only a certain level of connection they can make with like the kids and the horses and things like that. Like with me being here, I'm getting more experience with like the horses. I already know what it's like to be like a foster kid and like never like some foster kids still be having a family and get back with their family later and all that stuff. I went through the whole life of like a foster care situation that wasn't a family kind of a thing, and then like went off to prison and things like that. So I have all that in mind when I'm like, if I was in a situation where we was like caring for some kids and it'd just be I could see it as the ingredients for something that could be like really, really helpful. I mean, and really like amazing. So I would definitely hands on is like the only way. Like, and everybody learns because you're going to get more wise with working with the horses, and then and especially in that kind of capacity, and when we using them as like therapeutic kind of a resource for like traumatized or just troubled kids that need direction. Because it's like gonna be all this love there. It's gotta be love. Like how else can you deal with these animals and these young people? So there's gonna be like a labor of love in it, and then it also like rewards yourself. So yeah, hands on is there's no other way. You would have to have, and then if you can't be there all the time, that's why it's good to have a good team. So you don't get burnt out. You can spread yourself around and just keep it going, and then you inspire young people. They grow up, and then the next thing you know, they want to carry the torch. But it be starting somewhere. It start with us, and then we, my experience is the good with the bad and the ugly. It all now has a purpose where you could be like an example for what not to do or what you couldn't do. And this is a thing to take your mind off of. Some of these kids that's going through like foster care system or even come to prison, it'd be like really dark life, like really abusive parents. I mean, you name it, like it could be all kinds of stuff. Abuse themselves, like sexual abuse. You never know what they then went through, So it's like to have an environment where they could release, where they could just be like not thinking about it. And the horses is a good thing because you could like try to talk to a kid. You like the nice person and you talking to somebody traumatized. It might not be enough. the horse is like a way that like they could really disconnect. That's like how I connected to art. It was a real escape. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's with me my whole life. Some guy I bumped into, I ain't see a long time when I was in New York getting my things together to ship them out here to Florida. And I haven't seen him in years. I happened to bump into him. And he was like, "You still doing the art?" I was like, "I'm gonna be doing art forever until I die, like forever. Until I'm old man. Like I'm not gonna never stop art." I was kind of surprised he asked me that, you know. So, that's the opportunity we have, dude. Like we could like plant seeds and allow these kids to like see beyond the situation that they in now. And the horses is like an amazing way to do that. And also like there's a lot of environments where that opportunity is just not even possible. So for us to have it to be a possibility is like, and y'all already doing that work. So kudos to y'all, hats off to y'all. It's just
The
myself.
difficulty, I think, often for people that are running equestrian things is, of course, the equestrian environments are not usually in the inner cities where many of these kids are. Although, of course, they also come out of the suburbs as well. That said, we do have some projects that are in the middle of the cities, but so often it's a question of accessibility and transport. If somebody is going to be in the situation that you were in, presumably there has to be some kind of outreach that would allow the foster family that happens to have you at that time to know that this project is there and can be accessed. How would one best organize that? You know it from the inside. The the foster parents you had and the foster families that were looking after you, do you think that if there had been outreach to them for, say, an equestrian service, that they would have done it? Or do you think they would have thought, well, that's too much effort. I don't know if I want to drive all the way out there to such and such county. No, I'm not going to do that. How do we actually get these kids to the place?
Well, unfortunately, in my experience, like I don't think and not all of them, because I was in a number of them, and they all kind of had a level of, except for this one, it was kind of a little bit more caring, but not none. I was unfortunate to not have like that family kind of care, because like now they would have to care to go anywhere to want to
Mhm.
participate in it. Some people are not. They not like open to it. But like for those who are, and I'm not speaking for everybody. I think the ones that providing, how they say that saying, if you build it, they will come.
Mm.
There are there are like situations, foster situations in which they would be like, "Oh, that's awesome," and be a part of it. So it'll be all about building it. It'll be all about putting it together, proof of concept, like pitching it to like funders and people who can help it like all run well, give assistance to people that need to get there, and just get it started, and then show improve, like let people see how beneficial it can be. And then after that, and then especially if you have some like proof of it and examples, or have like a pilot program and things like that,
Mhm.
and then it just grows like after that. And then
That
you
for
get to
sure.
know.
But let's say I'm going to do this. How do I reach that young Russell who's happens to be in a foster situation where the people just don't really care and they don't really want to put in that effort to get you out to that barn? How do I get you to that barn?
Well, also those foster cares, they have co- like a like, for example, Philadelphia was Department of Human Services. So it was like people over the foster parents. So if like, so I guess you would have to start there, because like I told you, it'd be some foster parents that probably wouldn't be interested in all that stuff.
Hmm.
Got to DHS, and in different cities it's called different things. And then they suggest to them, like, listen, is this program that we're involved in where the kids can go there, and interact with the horses. It's therapeutic. It's this crazy great program. That would be, and then they're like over them. That's where they get they check. Foster parents be getting paid for having the foster kids. Like that, like direction to help them to get me there, because I couldn't go there without the permission of the parents. You know,
Absolutely.
so it would need to be that higher up. So the DHS would inform the foster parents that this is something that they should like take advantage of, especially like if it's if it's set up with DHS as like an option, and then we would like, you would meet with them and you'd be like, yo, we would really like for you to like present this to all the families, and that's how it
We
would
need to
go.
present it as a sort of, well, we'll take these unruly kids off your hands for an afternoon. So, there's something in it for you, the foster household,
Yeah, and that could be a
something
little
like
bit.
that.
That could be a part of the pitch, but like it don't got to be heavy handed on that. That could just be
Okay.
something you could to try to persuade the parent or whatever, or not even say it in that way. You said it like in a real blunt way, but like just like that, like you said, like we be watching your kids or something like that, or like, and you get a break, and it's a great thing, and then especially when they could come see it and see it as a great thing, like, oh, this is awesome. So it's all about that. I think it's about just properly presenting it to them as an option is how you, and especially like if you had like a video or something that they could see an example and they be like, oh, this is awesome. And then inner city, like if when you showing them, like, say example, Wellington or where you be, like, it's gonna be intriguing because we be just in the city all the time. So it'll be like it'll be very rare that you'll have a kid that's not interested at all. You know what I mean? So or
Sure.
even any city parents that all they do is work and they don't be having this like luxury. I want to say just luxury or like the leisure
But
or like,
beautiful natural environment. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, this opportunity to just like, disconnect. So I even think it'll be beneficial to some of the parents. And when
I'm
they,
sure.
yeah,
What
I
about
think it'll.
accessibility? What should one do about transport? These kids can't get out there by themselves. They're dependent upon the families that they're with to bring them. Would you go to the DHS and try to organize and get funded a transportation option, or what do you think?
I mean, that would be nice because if you're asking for all the parents to have to drive them to locations, especially if they would be far, that'd be problematic. That can be
Mm.
definitely problematic. You'll really slim it down to only a few that would be willing to do it and able to do it. So if it was established that there's a transportation option, that would be like, I think that would be really like almost necessary. Like, so with funding, that all goes into like, you're gonna definitely need funding, period. Like you're gonna need funding, period, like for all kinds of stuff. So all of those things are taken care of. And then that's another thing of how it would be successful because when you're coming to these people, the DHS and the actual parents and things like that, and everything is in order. Like this is fully funded and all that is no real headache. Like on top because it was like it started with this good idea and how great it is and how like beneficial it could be, but also like no headache of like everything's taken care of for everybody. It's how it would be. I mean, so you would have to get funding.
One of the things which we did in the early years with our organization is we did this without insurance. And now I look at it and that we must have been crazy, but we were crazy. We would take horses into city parks in Austin, Texas. We would just show up with a horse trailer and we'd unbox 4 horses and we'd just start working with kids. Or maybe we'd contact one family and that family would show up with 3 other families, and we did this all over the city and we did this on the university campus and we did this on, and we actually found that we had no problem getting permissions for it. In retrospect, we probably should have had better insurance, but we were lucky that we never had an incident. But I often wonder, I'm often intrigued by why that often doesn't happen. Do you think that would also have merit if the people who are running these programs that are outside the city bring the horses into the city where the kids are, where the access is easy, big city parks, that sort of thing, state, historic sites, university campuses, college campuses, whatever, schools, set the horses up there and run the sessions from there. Do you think that would work?
I mean, you could answer that better than me because that's awesome that you was doing that y'all was just showing up like that. Because there's like certain places you need permits or like something like or a lot, or you could go into environments that's like probably not the safest. And like how you saying
Mm.
it was good that y'all didn't have insurance and things didn't go right. I mean things didn't go wrong. You didn't have any incidents. So that was very, very blessed situation because I would think that you would wanna have, excuse me, I'd be like up painting all night and all this stuff. You know what I mean? But no, like, no, I think it would be better. That's awesome how you started, and then if you have that kind of experience, so just imagine yourself with
Mm.
more support. because you already have that drive, that goal, and that passion to be like, man, we just gonna do it. I done did it before. That's how we got it started.
Mm.
But I think at this point, you should definitely you should definitely have more support, like a support, and do the same thing you do, but just with support and having certain things taken care of, to where as though there's no room for any like things to go crazy or whatever, like, and it could just be like a pretty, and I don't want to say perfect, but like pretty solid, everything's checked, and just to make it like a more organized thing. And I think
Mm.
with the experience and the hurdles you already jumped over, you're not starting from like the beginning point. So it's all about like taking it to the next level and then being ready for these kids, like for these services to be like, just there for them, easy, you know, like,
Yeah,
you know,
the accessibility seems to me to be the main thing. One of when we were a few sentences ago, or a few sort of moments ago, we were talking about, I wouldn't be arrogant enough to think that exposure to one of our programs would necessarily keep a kid out of jail. But one of the things that one might hope would be that, let's say they did end up in that situation as you did, that maybe there would be memories that they could have to say, well, there are other possibilities in life. I did have these other experiences that were super positive. What if I was to go back towards those? What if I was to put my mind there and walk in that direction? You would hope that some of those experiences would resonate through darker times. Once you yourself hit the criminal justice system, now I know that you didn't go in for violent crime. It was a series of drug-related crimes that sort of mounted up and then hit the jail time. But nonetheless, once you're in there, it's a violent world. Of course, the streets are a violent world, but prison is an even more violent world. You were just going away from horses and back to you for a moment. You were in there as an artist. You weren't interested in macho culture. I mean, you're a big dude. I've met you, and you come off the streets. I'm sure you can look after yourself, but that's not really the point I'm making. It's such a violent world in there, and if you are not interested in participating in macho or gang culture or whatever, and you want to be an artist in that situation, how do you survive? I mean, how do you survive the prejudice within the system? How do you make that work for yourself with your fellow inmates and so on?
well, for me in my situation, because it's like unique with each person, because like it's all about how you going to react to these environments, like how are you going to behave there and things like that. Then also some prisons are like more intense than others. So that's also a factor. But for the most part of my experiences, and I did a number of years in jail, it's like when you mind your business, like you in your own world, like they respect it. Oh, and it's like this respect for artists. Like artists are like held high there because it's one of the only things that you provide like a service in the inside. And then it's like, so technically you're not supposed to run a business. You're not allowed to run a business. It's one of the things that you can get in trouble and wind up going in a hole for if they want to shut you down for whatever business that you got going. So by me selling portraits, you're really not supposed to do it, but it's like, it's guards that be like, when you like a good artist and they see your art, and there be times where and they not supposed to engage in any business with you, but it be like guards wanting paintings and things like that.
I see.
When you good like that, like they be like, everybody be wanting a part of it. So it's like, it kind of puts you in this realm, like nobody really mess with the artist. And then they come to you to do paintings and things for them because it's ways that they can connect with their family, give gifts during birthdays and stuff like that, because you do some kind of craft. There's like, I do like these weavings that be incorporated in my painting that come from my prison experience, but we would take commissary disregarded like packages and things like that, like empty chip bags, empty noodle bags, and make these woven together like picture frames. And I incorporate that to like my art. And then like some guy, he might can't paint, but he make the picture frames real nice and put the pictures up so other inmates will buy the frames and put their family pictures in it and hang it, in a cell and things like that. So it really kind of just it helped me through not only just mentally and like in a personal level, but just like navigating in the prison, like it's like how you function in there. That's how I was able to do it. And it also had me have the vision. I started having the ideas, and I truly believed in myself that I could be an artist getting out. So then that goes back to the horses, and the thing you talking about is like how this program and things you're doing and the work with the horses can definitely be an impression in the minds of like, because it's like so many kids and things don't be having no opportunities. They don't be exposed to things. So like a properly structured program where you provide the horses for a therapeutic kind of a component, but then it also should have with like funding or whatever, the structure and the planning to have something that's like lasting and like leading the kids of like, okay, once you out of this program, once you get to like an independent living kind of a stage, you know, we put into your head positivity and direction and things like that, and then have the resources in which that kind of could send them off. Not like a thing that's temporary. You could have like a thing where it's like great, they come and it's a great time and it's like nice and it's safe for a moment, but then send them back into the wild. I seen and had worked with programs like that in Philadelphia that was like that. It's set up and then you only giving the kids 6 months of a lot of them will be like, well, what do we do after this? Then a lot of them will wind up either dead or back in jail. Because it was like a real intense, it was a program for kids that was really deep in the streets, like doing violent stuff, robbing people, getting caught with guns, assault, you know, all the like kind of heavy crimes. And these are young folks, juveniles, like young. And it was like the program was like temporary, and they would like teach them like carpentry. You had me as the art teacher, and they had these different components of the program, but then it was so limited in time. It didn't, you know, and then it didn't have anything that like really helped. I ain't gonna say it didn't have anything. They had like a mock job thing that they had at the end where they would like try to set them up employment and things like that. But I think it could have been, especially for the kind of funding that they was getting every year, like they could have came up with something that was like really like help place. Cause sometimes some kids get placed in a good thing, but it wasn't the overall program. Like it wasn't like that's what happens with this program. Like it'd be like these success stories. And like how I was able, because I was in that program, but I quickly evolved to artist assistant, then lead artist in Philadelphia Mural Arts program. And then went out
How,
to New
how,
York.
how, what if you were running that program then and you had access to the good funding that you said that they had, what would you have done differently to?
I would you take what you got that works, but then you add upon. There's always room for improvement. That's a saying that I go by. So it's like you got what you got going. Then it's like, okay, the next funding is coming in next year, and you there for some time. So if I'm the guy that's running it, where I got a team, that's what the meetings be about. When you have like staff meetings and things, and it'd be like, you know, and it's a good question you asking, because it's like when you seen the bad things that was happening, and then they didn't like nobody either cared, or they was treated like a normal thing when these kids was winding up. One time it was on a Friday. By Monday, 5 of the kids was like gone. Like I think like 4 in jail, 1 got murdered. So you got a class of 15, 5 of them was gone over the weekend. So it'd be stuff like that to be like, okay, when the weekend, when there's not programming going on, and we talk about an intense kind of like, you know, I told you these kids was like from the streets, like deep in the streets. So you would want to try that once they're in the program, they need to be sheltered, like really set up to be like, okay, you're here, you're like you accepted it, sign here, you want to participate in this. We need your participation where you're here, and we got everything to make sure you good while you here. And then in the long run, for however the program runs, that it directs you into not back into the streets where you were. You need to
Mm.
be going like either some kind of college, community college, whatever kind of opportunities that we can like funnel you to, job placement or whatever, help you at the moment, and then also help you lead you off. And if you decide to leave that and or whatever and go back, that be on you. You know what I mean? But I didn't see situations where it's like it didn't even give them the opportunity, the chance to like really make it. It'd be like a temporary thing. Hey, people take this photos and we're doing this good thing for people to get more funding, and it'd be like for the benefit of the folks. And then I've been in situations recently where it's like there's a lot of that going on, where it's like people having these things, these programs, but it's not for the benefit of who they say it's for. And that's unfortunate.
Right. I think that, I do know that this can happen. I think most people that are running these sorts of programs are running them with coming from the right place. The question is, how do you create that shelter that you're talking about? Because the environment, this is always the difficulty, and this I think comes back to this question of accessibility, say for the kids from the foster system as well. The environment that we would bring them into in a horse barn is not the environment that they're going to go back to live in. They just are not going to. And if they're coming from the streets, do these programs need to have some sort of campus?
Yeah,
Is
I was
that
kind of
really
thinking
what we're talking about?
I was thinking that as you were saying it.
Mm,
I was thinking that as you were saying it. You was like, when they come to the barn, I was like, yeah, they need to be like really like never going back. Not know like at the end of the day or like
mm.
or the weekend they going back because like, oh no, another thing that'd be very problematic when the other kids or whatever be from the hood and they hear about that they in a program, it make them a target. They
Okay.
don't even gotta be doing super good. Just like, oh, you better. They look for anything to like be like, you think you better, and then don't let them post on on the Instagram or something. They on some horses or anything different than the hood shit. They become like it's like this bad energy crab in a barrel kind of a. So they would need to be separated. And then with the campus, you have the therapeutic things going on with like the horses and stuff like that. But just like programming. So whereas though they're like, and that will really help their minds like get like, because you're really now separated from the situation, but you're not in a prison. You haven't been sent to some juvenile place. You've been sent to a place that's helping you, get your life together, get your life on track, and hopefully to go on to do great things in life. And that'll be a great program. We get
So
that.
we're brainstorming here. How do you then how do some kids end up
You
in this
need
campus
funding.
and other
You
kids
need
not?
funding.
Like,
You need funding,
well,
because it's just
funding for sure, but even with the funding, let's say the administration changed and all sorts of funding came flooding into the philanthropic areas of government.
so you need to build
We
it.
have had that situation before. Let's say it's the streets of Philly. There's still going to be kids that would access the program and kids that would not access the program. How does how does one deal with that kind of unfairness?
I don't know. Like you can't it can't be like you can't control everything. So
Mm,
you just gotta build it. You would just have to build it. I had put the emphasis on the funding because you would, you can have all kinds of great ideas, but if you don't have like the means of making it put it together and put it together strongly, and
mm.
that's dude, you gotta put it together. You gotta build it. You know what I'm saying? And then after that, just run it accordingly. And then also having the proper staff. People that really can, not just anybody that just want to take a job. You have caring people that's behind it or whatever. You build it, and that's just how it. And then you promote it. Then you get out there. You know what I'm saying? And then, like I said, examples. Y'all been doing what y'all been doing for quite some time, but then you could have like a pilot program, and then have like some kind of video, like Will and them. I do a piece, or I got the thing coming up in Aspen. They did a video. I proposed for doing public art in Miami, which is, an hour and a half from Wellington. And they did a video. I talked about things I did in the past, my experience and over the years with mural arts in Philadelphia. And I did a number of murals and got award for it and stuff like that. So I explained in the video what it is, and then they can go look me up and see, Google me and stuff. So what I'm saying is giving an example of like when you would do the same thing, that's how you would do it. You just build it,
You know what's
show
coming
them.
to my mind? What's coming to my, I'm sort of wrestling with this idea of campuses and what goes on these campuses and where are these campuses and so on. What comes into my mind weirdly, just as we're brainstorming here, is green jobs, forest planting, market gardening, land reclamation of shitty industrial sites to make them back into like parks and public spaces and these sorts of things, which I'm always surprised that we're not seeing government putting money into this type of green job creation in the US. You do see it in other countries, and there have been times in the US when the government did do things like this, notably back in the 30s, when, you know, when you go to state parks, for example, and national parks, and you often see these very beautiful, rather whimsical buildings and all the trails and sort of staircases up the mountain. They were all built by, many of them were built by people who were unemployed and destitute, who then joined a program that the government had there to, that there's something called, it'll come to my mind, someone listening to it will put it in the comments below. But we haven't seen anything like this for an awful long time. But it seems to me that the scale of the problem that we're talking about here is so great that it almost requires something like that. But a pilot project would be, of course, a good way to start. But what springs to my mind is, yeah, what's going on this campus? And how is this campus different, appreciably different to the environment of the hood? It needs nature, right? It can't just be a horse farm. It's got to be, I think, more than that. There has to be forestry. There has to be restoration of land. There has to be this type of thing where there is potentially job, you know, that is lasting, that could, you could then go into the forest service. You could then go into, you know,
Yeah,
agriculture. You could go into other sorts of things that, yeah, that would
that's
also not
exactly
take you back to the city.
that's exactly because even if they, I mean, I like that because it's like they would have that opportunity of being trained that they could work in that area if they choose,
Mm,
or teach them work ethic that they can put into any kind of interest that they got. It would be like a good training like place for them. And I really like how that sound, and then keeping them busy. Like when you busy, there's not much room for foolishness.
mm,
So that'd be you making me like dream because it's like I can see it like it could be great. But then also like when you talk about like a place for them to be like a place, and I was like to think about like where would that would happen, and it'd be like a lot of people would be having that kind of properties and space and things like that, and hopefully we could
mm,
like partner with them and use
mm.
theirs instead of trying to like get up so much funding that we had to buy some kind of place. That would be
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you'd need existing properties to be made available.
nice. It will be people that we could pitch it to that might be interested, and then it could probably grow later, you know what I'm saying? But it will be nice
Something
to
which I've there's this little dream I've had for a long time is, you know, schools, particularly schools in urban America, look like prisons, right? When you drive past them, you're like, that looks like a prison. It's this thing behind this big chain link fence. It's these concrete buildings. And you see the kids getting shuffled from here. You see the kids getting shuffled to there. And you go inside them, and Jesus, you know. And one of the things I've often thought is, if not only is that an environment that creates a certain kind of despair in the mind and the heart, but they're also concrete islands that create environmental as well as social problems for the neighborhood. So if the kids are all unhappy, they're coming out of that school and maybe doing crime. If but the concrete itself is putting out a lot of heat and a lot of physical discomfort. And one of the things I've often dreamed of is, what if those schools became green islands? What if they became cooling islands what if they became forests? And then they have a cooling effect on the neighborhood, socially as well as physically, rather than a heating effect on the neighborhood, socially and physically. And as we're talking, you know, that dream has never really gone away for me. And I think I had it even as a child because I grew up actually not in the country. I had a horsey aunt, but my parents were very urban, and I went to school in the middle of the financial district of London, which is about as concrete as you can get. It's like heavy, harsh concrete. And they were rebuilding it after the war. You know, I'm quite old now, so when I was a kid, a lot of the financial districts that there in London wasn't there because it had been knocked flat by bombs in the war. So there was a lot of heavy, heavy construction going on of these huge skyscrapers going up. So just noise and concrete and dust and heat. And you're going to school through this. And I remember just longing for nature, longing for nature, longing for something green. I'm wondering if, yeah, if this idea of sort of bringing the horses in to the schools and the hoods is maybe that it has to actually be the school buildings itself. Maybe it has to start there. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean a lot of work there because you talking about with schools.
Mm, mm,
'Cause you can't just show up to these places. You would have to like put some work in. It would have to be some work put in.
Yeah. No, you need buy-in. You need again, it comes down to pilot projects. I think you need a couple of
Yeah,
schools.
yeah. I'm about to go there. You took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say
Yeah.
you have to have an event, a proof of concept, and show
Mm,
folks, because that'll help. And then and with time, with the success and with time of a little track record, then that's how it becomes a little easier when you present. And then you leave it in the hands of like how much do they want to be a part of it or they want to do it, because
mm.
once you yourself, like, no, this we do this, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then you leave it to their hands, but you make it easier for people that's like either for it or like in the middle. They'll lean towards it because it's like we already like showed you that this can be done, and then that's a good thing. You know what I mean? So
One of the reasons I like to bat ideas around like this on the show and these conversations is, it's very easy, particularly with the horse world, to get very focused on the horse because they're very time consuming to keep. And horse people tend to be a bit autistic that way anyway. We're very horse obsessed. But what I think we often need to think a little bit broader. And because, not everyone that comes out to an equestrian program, for example, feels the horse. But what they can do is they can feel nature, they can feel that freedom, they can feel the sense of nurturing a piece of land or growing vegetables or looking after the chickens and the dogs. You never know what is the thing that's going to speak to them. So if we're not thinking a little bit beyond the horse, or at least what do we do with these beautiful environments that the horses are in that is greater than the horse, then I feel that we're not utilizing our resources as well as we perhaps could be. Let's just go to back to your experience in prison again. So you said, I was intrigued by you saying that there's a respect for artists there, and that I wouldn't have expected. So that was new to me. D- Do you feel that if that sort of idea of nature and the mind and working with nature were brought into prisons, do you think that not just the horse? What sort of effect do you think that would have? And then the other question for me is you were lucky to some degree in that you had a passion and a talent. You knew you wanted to be an artist. You had that going on. That was already moving inside you. But you must have come across a lot of people in prison who did not know what their life's passion was, who were kind of lost that way.
If you're a horse nerd, and if you're on this podcast, I'm guessing you are, then you've probably also always wondered a little bit about the old master's system of dressage training. If you go and check out our Helios Harmony program, we outline there step by step exactly how to train your horse from the ground to become the dressage horse of your dreams in a way that absolutely serves the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of the horse and the rider. Intrigued? Like to know more? Go to our website, heliosharmony.com. Check out the free introduction course. Take it from there.
What about those people? How does one help them?
now that's a really good question, because like when we was talking about helping the kids, that's a little different because they're young, and they're at a place in which they could be steered towards that negativity
Mm,
or that kind of life where they're in prison or like or feeling like there's no turning back. What do you see once you have an adult that's like in prison and stuck in that mindset is a different thing. And it's not easy to try to, because there's those groups, like this is a really good question. There's people in the prison is like they be like in these groups and they're stuck in that like gang, prison, the negative thing is a part of them, to the point where some of them feel like that's what it is, and it's like you talking about anything other than that is lame. And then we talk about horses and stuff. That's next level. That's not even like you not even talking about you need to change your life around and be positive. They hear that all the time. You know what I mean? But like it'll be so beyond their comprehension of like, I mean, or so unrelatable that some people like are so far gone. But not all though, because you have some that if it was some kind of way how to and when you said in connecting it with nature, in prison, the ones that I was in, it would be no way that would happen right away. It's no way they would go to prison and they would have some kind of thing. They have like this level system, and like say you was there and you had all this good behavior, then you would be access. You would be eligible to like work on the outside unit and things like that. So I could see that, and I believe in states they be having things like that where they working with even horses. I heard about programs like that, but it just in Pennsylvania, in because I was locked up in Pennsylvania, lived in New York, but I never was locked up there. But I hear that the states that they have like a program where they work for the horses, and I'm sure it works off of that your good behavior kind of a level system. Because if you get into fights and get caught, because you can get in a fight, but you got to not get caught. You got to fight like in a secret area and things like that. I had gotten into a few, and that'd be the thing. That's how you try to do it. And then sometimes, things will just break out in the open. So when they grab you and the guards grab you, put you in a hole, and it's like, you've been caught officially in like a fight or something like that, that would make you not eligible for like anything like positive programs and stuff like that. But for the ones that the possibilities of where it could happen, yeah, that'd be great. And especially dudes that have been in for all that concrete and things for years. They would love to. There's a lot of prisons where you don't even see a tree. You be in jail for so many years, you don't even see a tree. I was in this one prison where you couldn't see the sunset. The wall was so big out there, the wall to keep us in. And that had me so stressed when I was like, yo, you can't even see the sunset or any trees. When I went to the yard and I didn't go out the yard for a year. And this Latin gentleman was telling me that like, he was like, yo, you need to go outside. You shouldn't like just, I would told him about the wall and the reason why I didn't go. And he was like, you shouldn't do that to yourself. Like, and that's the kind of thing that can damage you because you just like always inside. So yeah, like connection to nature. But I would suggest that it would be like that anyway. But I think that's a good thing that it would be some kind of way you had to earn that program. You know what I'm saying, or some kind of component in which the inmates are like being brought back into like nature. And I think that would be that's like a good idea because it's like when you're coming from the city, that's all that's concrete and jungle. Prisons that's still in the concrete, and to like have somebody. So not only putting them in nature, you would need like a guide person, a person that helped them get in tune with the nature. Because that came to mind earlier. Some other things we was talking about. I was like, you need like a spiritual like person, and it don't matter who it could be different kinds of methods of spirituality, but I think that needs to be like also like optional and help them to really like get into a deeper understanding about things, and that's how the change happens. Because some people are just bred to be a certain way, and that's how they go that wrong direction. Because it's
Do we
being
need
fed.
that in the foster kid programs too? Do we need that spiritual component there?
Absolutely, I've been had that thought, but I told you I ain't want to get too weird for
Mm.
folk. But like, yeah, I think it's important. It's like really important to get in tune because that connects you to nature. That connects you to the horses. You have to have that kind of spiritual understanding. And for those who don't be having that it can be problematic to be disconnected.
It's one of
Some
the problems that I've encountered living in the US for many years is that a lot of the spirituality that's available in mainstream, of course, comes through sort of various Protestant denominations of Christianity that are often very anti-ethical to nature. There's often this idea of, man's domination over nature, and somehow being Christian means concreting nature over and putting up a McDonald's, which has always been crazy to me. And then I recently had some conversations with a couple of church priests that I knew saying, well, why is this? Why aren't you stewarding creation? Why are you destroying creation? Like, I'm sorry, but you are. Like, why? And I got some really interesting answers. And I found out that there was actually a quite big movement in the church now, which I was quite heartened by, to bring it back to nature, much more so than I thought, and particularly some groups I've been involved with in Michigan. And I'm wondering if it's something like that that one needs to look towards, because if one's looking towards sort of Eastern traditions like Buddhism or whatever, or, I've been exposed to a lot of shamanic practice, obviously out in Africa and places, but you can't bring that into mainstream America. There's also Native America, where those practices are alive and well and never died, but for some odd reason, they are never allowed to be within the institutions, it seems. So it seems to always have to come back to Christianity. But if it is going to do that, then I think we need to look for that environmental aspect of Christianity, which up until now has not been there. It's very interesting to me when people talk of themselves as Christians, and then you're like, well, what about stewarding the creation? And then why isn't that the conversation? So would it be something like that at the foster kid level and then perhaps on into the prison level? I'm just trying to envisage. You need those spiritual leaders, but you need spiritual leaders that are going to be accepted by the authorities. So they'd have to come from within that sort of church structure, right?
But no, because like when
No?
I was speaking of spirituality, I'm not talking about Christianity. I'm not a Christian. You know what I mean? So like I was talking more about those traditional ones you was talking about when you speaking of like native and the other examples
Would
that
those
you
be allowed in the prison environment?
it's not about what's allowed. I
Okay.
think it needs to happen and it needs and you don't gotta force it to nobody that this is what you need to believe in. It's
Okay.
all about us doing a research and presenting to the kids and teaching them like that this is a thing. It's just like if we was playing, I'll give you an example. And this is a good example because recently we went to is a garden that we go to here. There's a lady, she has a really nice garden and allows us to she said you can come and take anything you want at any time you want, right? So one day we went there and she had a gardener there. And then she was so happy that we were there and she was explaining all this stuff to us and some stuff that we don't know nothing about. Like I don't know nothing about gardening, like and like growing. So I know you put a seed in and you water it, it could grow, but it's like things that you should know. It's knowledge that you need to know about the soil and everything. It's like all this stuff that she was breaking down just in the short time we was with her because she didn't even stay the whole time when we was picking stuff. She kind of introduced us to the areas of like this is here, that's there, and she was giving us all these details. She was very knowledgeable. So when we are knowledgeable about like certain spirituality aspects in which we know to be like proven to be beneficial, then I don't think it needs to be any permission because we're not pushing any ideal out like religions in which they need to follow at all and things like that.
You're
That
not
could be
talking about, services and spiritual ceremonies necessarily.
yeah. I'm talking about anything that's like forced. I'm talking about like what's a good example? Like we talking about getting in tune with nature. So people mentioning grounding and things like that. And the benefits of it, taking your shoes off, putting your feet in the grass and connecting to the earth or placing your hand on a tree and then giving them the knowledge of like how is it beneficial? Where's the facts that this is beneficial to your body and things like that. And just
Mm,
giving them that, and that's helping them get in tune. And then we giving them the knowledge behind it and things like that. And it can be like a practice. I think it would be like necessary. It would go with everything. It would go with like being around the horses, being in
mm.
the nature and around the trees, but then also connecting with them. That's not probably not in on and then even in and you mentioned Christianity, it is a whole lot of wisdom in I'm not a
Oh,
Christian.
there is. Yeah. I'm not knocking the
There's
Christ
a whole
message
lot
at
of
all.
wisdom.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of wisdom in there. So if we can, pull something from the Bible that's like real and you give it to them, like, cause I do that. I quote the Bible a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
He without sin cast the first stone. It'd be a whole lot of people that be judgmental about another person, but be like jacked up themselves. So how
mm,
could you be so judgmental and want to like always be critical of this person? And you be doing worse stuff, So
mm,
stuff like that, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's and it don't gotta be like set up, but like, hey, this is church. Cause
mm.
you could cult kind of a thing. And it's kind of like this thing, and you have to believe this thing, and hey, everybody gather around. Like a more natural environment of like
Sure.
we giving all positivity and whatever knowledge you got, you share it with the group, and that can go for everybody. It be times when I give you an example. My daughter, she's 11 now and coming to visit soon. She live in North Carolina. And one day she was like, "Yeah, could you get me these paint markers?" She was like 8. I think she was like 8. And it was like professional paint mark. They wasn't like little kid markers, and I be using them. And it was like she introduced them to me. And then they be coming in really handy because they go over the painting. Like certain markers won't go over like paintings I do, but these are actual paint markers that can be incorporated into what I do. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I bought them for her, but when I went to get them, I said, oh, I'll try these out. And she, if it wasn't for her bringing them to my attention at 8 years old, I wouldn't even know that they exist. And you know how many times they come in handy? They come in so handy. I was like, damn, like she added another medium to my practice as an 8-year-old. I don't even know how she knew about these markers, paint markers, professional markers. They're not little kid markers. So it'll be stuff like that. You just never know. So as a community, they say each one teach one.
Mm. If you are then, okay, so let's say within prisons, that if there was some opportunity for horses, and as you say, there are horse programs. Unfortunately, some of them have been shut down recently, but there have been horse programs, notably in Arizona and places like that, with prison programs with horses. And we're going to actually have a guy on the show called Randy Helm quite soon who pioneered that, and it'll be very interesting to hear what he has to say. But then let's talk about when people come out. So I'm quite used to working with or let's say the closest I can imagine in my current work to this is we work with veterans, but we also work with active service. So when we work, for example, with the German army, the people that we're working with are quite often deployed and often special forces deployed, but they can't talk about what they are going to do because the missions are secret. So they're not allowed to talk to their families. So the families are to some degree estranged from each other. So we put together camps where they come together and, okay, we're not talking about what you're doing out there, but we can talk about other things and facilitate other things and have these times in nature with horses. And then, of course, when people come out of the military, particularly out of active service, they usually, if they've been deployed in combat, then there's almost always trauma. And of course, you don't have to go to combat to have trauma. There's plenty of ways to get trauma in life. So, and then we also work with a lot of first responders who are going through trauma all the time. Those are the guys who are out there, the fire department, scraping the brains off the freeway every Saturday night when everyone's, smashing up their cars and dying. And these people who are out there cleaning up the mess and helping everybody out are trying not to disappear into a vodka bottle or, into methamphetamine because they're dealing with a lot of depression and so on and so on. So when people are coming out of prison, I should imagine that it's to some degree must be similar to some degree. And there must be, correct me if I'm wrong, is there an initial euphoria of, oh my God, I'm out. This is amazing. And then is there almost immediately a sort of a plunge of, oh, now what am I going to do? And what's the best way to deal with this?
I would say for that, another good question, but that's like that differs with every individual. Now, a lot of folks come out and there's going to be some joy that you leave in like prison, but then there be some that be like really because you was like do it like go true for everybody. No, I don't think because there's some people who has support, so they get out, they happy, they celebrated, they're received people, and like and help them get back on track. See, me, I didn't being a foster care person. I didn't have that family kind of structure. Had nothing waiting for me. I had to stay in a halfway house like way longer than you were supposed to. A halfway house is like somewhere you would go because you halfway. They call it halfway houses. You halfway in prison, halfway out back into society. So you go into the halfway house first, and that's where you gotta find. You give you a certain amount of time to find a job, or you'll be a violator, and you go back to prison and things like that. So you'll have some dudes that dread it, that be like, "Oh, what I'm gonna do?" Because they don't be having no job set up, no way to like feed themselves or whatever, and then you be on parole, which would all have all these. It's like a system that's set up for you to go back to prison. It's really crazy, really unfortunate because it's all these rules and things and then you can violate parole and be back in prison. And parole is something that if you get sentenced to 10 years, 5 to 10, meaning 5 years in prison, you're eligible for being on parole, meaning you do 5 years on parole out in society. But if you do anything violated, you go back to prison for that remaining 5. So you can do a whole 10 years in prison if you can't find job placements and stuff. So you be having some people who be not so happy about leaving prison because they don't be having nothing left for them, and then they also be having like the streets, same stuff. So you have now not only is you going back to the streets, now you have all this conditions on you that you can go back to jail even quicker than you did. And then you got to keep checking in. You got to do piss tests and things. I can't do any drugs. They say you can't be in the area with other like this mass incarceration is like all these people in the hood and went to jail and things like that. So if you can be violated by if I'm in the presence of someone else that's from the prisons, like that's in the prison system or went through the like a prior criminal that's a violation because you hanging with him. But that's like almost everybody in the hood. So your parole officer pop up on you and you standing next to this guy and he also went through the system, you can go to jail. You
Wow.
you can't have a phone, but then you need a phone. How can a job call you if you put in applications and you waiting for a call, but they say you're not allowed to have cell phone on parole? This is crazy. It's like
So how do
insane.
you stay out of jail with
So
with
it's
all
a
these?
long list. I can't even remember all of them. It's a long list. No, it's set up to like, so the way it's set up with all that stuff, with them, with the little examples I gave you, you can't go outside. You be like, you give them your address or where you gonna be. You can't go outside of this. What if this job that I found is outside of the map? They give you a map in which you can't. I wanted to make some art about this, a series of art about how ridiculous that list is. And I'm only mentioning a few things. I don't got the whole thing memorized. It's a long list of things that can get you back. And then to answer your question of how, it is really it is no how, because like if they might can get you. So it's about, and some of the parole officers are really dicks. So like they the ones that they'll put you back in prison, and it's set up that system thing. I'm telling you that it allows them to can put you in for anything. So you had to be fortunate by God that you don't have one that's like driven to put you back. Because if you get one that don't like you, you're going back, and that's like kind of how it goes. So the way that the curve it, you have to have, but the inside you got to somehow set up structure, like have things set up, and hopefully that you fortunate enough. I ain't have all that. So that was another reason why art was so serious. Like it'd be some people who swear that like things that happen with me is luck. You know what I'm saying? But they don't understand the planning and and the understanding that I had of what I was going to be dealing with. So I like, it was like phenomenal how I was able to like actually execute the plan of like I'll use art as like my navigation like system through all that madness that I was explaining to you.
A lot of people must not have any structures to come back out to, and they don't have a great talent for art. And even if they did, I mean, it's just talent's not enough. You have to have a certain kind of organized mind and drive and understand, the system that you're trying to enter. What is the art world? How do I enter it? Blah, 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 blah. How do you, would, if you were a parole officer and you were going to help somebody navigate this, what would you suggest they do? A
Well,
good parole officer.
and I had one too. He was this military dude, and he was like, so for me, my experience, and then I'll try to answer your question like how do somebody else do it? Well, yeah, I can tie it to what I did. Like I had a plan long time ago. I had a plan. So I did 7 years. I did 12 years total, and I did 7 on my last time that I was in prison, my last prison stay. So with those years leading up to my release, I was thinking of my apologies.
No worries.
I was thinking about my release all the time. Like I remember when I stated how like I didn't really get into like doing too much of the like prison kind of stuff. And I dipped and dabbed in it. It was times I played chess, it was times I played spades, but I was majority. I'm talking 85%. I'm gonna say that's a fair number. 85% art. And not only just art, thinking of how, and I was doing pretty good with my like business inside here, like making the portraits for people, whatever, because I never got visits, never got no letters, none of that. I don't have family structure. And I was one of the very few that had nobody. And the only dudes that was like me was if you've been there for many years and you like 90 years old and everybody you in your family died. So those are the type of people that never had nobody. For me to be I'm 19, 20 and never getting visits and stuff like that was unheard of. So I was just focusing. So, and then that also created urgency for me too, because it's like nobody to like help you. So it makes me like really be like having to figure out like how, like nothing, like no kind of support, no
But
girlfriend.
you didn't know when you were on the inside how to get stuff into galleries, how to break into the
Oh
art
yeah,
world
no,
that
no,
way.
none of that, none of that, none of
So
that.
what was the plan?
Wait, just to do it, just to do it. Like how I said, just to build it. So you can add this to what I'm trying to say to you right now, because I
Mm.
didn't did it. I did it with nothing, with absolute nothing, with just a dream, no support, nothing, no
So
experience, and
what
nothing.
were the first steps? You get out,
Your first steps is here, your
Mm-hmm.
mental. Your first steps is believing. Your first step is truly believing first. Second is the planning. Plan it out. You got to visualize it. I mastermind and go after mine. Then I
So,
stayed
right, but what was the plan? I mean, I'm intrigued.
to be an artist.
Okay.
No plan B. That's how I did it. No lie. I told you I have a proof. We can go back to the conversation in the beginning of this Zoom.
Mm.
And I have that piece prophesized on the African American Museum of Philadelphia when I kind of first my first years out of, like, when I was just getting released, because that's what I was doing inside. I told you, it stated out my mouth, I'm gonna be a famous artist. That's what I told dudes. I'm gonna be a famous artist, and really was crazy enough to believe so. So that's where it come from. And then after that, and I stated earlier in the Zoom, I said, I ain't saying that. I'm not. This is what I want this is if they don't take away nothing else, your listeners. I'm not the guy who say stuff because it sound cool. Put me on the camera. I'm gonna say all this stuff, and I'm this guy, and I'm this guru, or I'm this professional, and I know how to tell you all this stuff. I'm telling you exactly what happened. I'm a person that had nothing all my life. I had nothing. I had nobody. I had nothing. Nobody. Nothing. I don't just understand that. Not even a little bit of something. Nothing. And then once I got into that prison system, I said I have to escape this world. I had a visualization of like where I was at, and a realization, an epiphany of like, whoa, I'm in like captivity for real. Like, even if you leave this prison, I told you, with the parole and all that stuff, is a trap for you. It'd be a lot of people, they'd be like, it's amazing how you was able to get up out of there thing. I had a clear decision. I was like, I want out of here. Like, I want out of this. Like, they like the Matrix and the new slavery, all of that. I'm a runaway slave. I'm out of here. So and it came with like, okay, how do you escape? So it was about, and then I said, I'm going to use art. If I was able to do and sell art and stuff in that kind of environment with dudes as their family sending them money, and they giving the money that's being sent to them to me, in that kind of environment, then I was like, I can make it. They say if you can make it in New York, you can make it in anywhere. If you can make it in prison, you can make it anywhere.
Mm.
So and then the energy, and then I said it goes beyond you. Then once you take those steps, it goes beyond you after that. Then it's stuff coming from, and is people choose not to believe in like a God, or if you want to say it's the universe, good karma, like I try to do things in good intentions or whatever, then there be things that be happening. You know what I'm saying? I flew back yesterday here. I changed my seat in the plane. True story that I wasn't going to keep to myself. I said, I'm working on some stuff. I stated earlier, I said that I was going to rush a thing. And then I said, no, let me take my time a little bit with this and then really present something nice for the guy who runs Louis Vuitton, wife who's sitting next to me on the plane yesterday when I changed my seat last minute. Will told me stop buying first class tickets. I said, nah, because you never know. One, you never know who you're going to sit next to. This is my thoughts and what I decided to do. I said, nah, I'm going to get first class because and also I'm transporting a lot of stuff with first class. You allowed to have heavier bags, and I'm transporting my stuff from New York was the two reasons. And then the other reason was like, you never know who you sit next to. I was in the back of the first class. It's like 4 rows. Last minute, as you could check in on your phone, I moved my seat to the front just instinctively. I always have my headphones on, play the game and thing. I'm giving you an example how things happen be beyond you once you on the path. Things that happen that you didn't plan. There's no the airport attendant take my bag and say you got to put it up because I had it under the seat. It was a Louis Vuitton bag. He said, "Oh, that's a nice bag." I said, "Yeah, it's Louis Vuitton vintage." She said, "That's Louis Vuitton. My husband owned Louis Vuitton." And next thing you know, now I'm doing paintings for her or whatever. I didn't plan that. I didn't even know who she was. That was yesterday, and then after the Zoom, we going to her. She has a dog rescue thing that me and Will going to after the Zoom is over, and then she
Mm.
want me like 4 paintings. Didn't plan that. Once you get on the path, and I can give you these examples over and over and over again. Then I said, while I'm eating they gave us our peanuts and stuff, and I was like, you want to know what? I have all this Louis Vuitton. So I've been planning for this before it happened. I got all these Louis Vuitton. You want me to run upstairs and come back down with the receipts? I got the receipt because I kept them they come in an orange. I got a whole lot of receipts upstairs, a whole lot. I will run and show them to you. I held them for years because I said I'm gonna do some art with this, and I never rushed it. I had those for years. I got all these Louis Vuitton. People that got Louis Vuitton, they know I have garment bags in their canvas, and I saved them because like one day I'm gonna do art. So now, and then that's why I held up because I could have did a. She sent me some pictures of her on her horses and things like that. And I was going to paint it, so get it painted real quick. And today, show her, like, look how fast I did it. Look at it, look just like you. Da da da. I said, no, I'm gonna use the materials from Louis Vuitton, put them together, and then paint her on her Louis Vuitton, her business on her stuff, and not in a rush it. I didn't plan it. Well, parts of it I kind of prepared it because I saved all these Louis Vuitton materials for this. And this is a true story. The head of Louis Vuitton's wife, I'm doing work for that I met randomly because like certain things start opening up for you once you get on a path.
This I absolutely get. What I'm trying, let's go back to putting together in our mind, okay, someone's coming out of jail and now maybe they're coming to our therapeutic riding place. They will have a parole officer. Let's say you were that parole officer. You were a good parole officer. What would be the first piece of guidance, or what would be like the 5 main pieces of guidance that you would give to somebody coming out? And then what can we as the equine therapeutic practitioners learn from that to back that up? Okay, so now you're the parole officer. What are you telling the dude when he comes out?
It's kind of hard because like, okay, well, let me put it like this. So I would have to see in this certain individual
Mm-hmm.
the potential for me to even tell them anything because a lot of them don't want to hear it or don't care. So you'll be able to like, and I'm really good with like judging character and like feeling energy of like a person.
Mm-hmm.
So like if it's one of those ones that like you think got potential, then that's the ones who you'll give advice to. Then even will probably have to assist in ways like not only just tell them what they need to do, help them because like I have an understanding to knowing it's not that easy for them to be getting out of like their situations and going into something different. You know what I mean, so you would like explain, and then you would have that you have people giving you positivity, and even with I told you I had a good dude, this military dude. I think he was like he was a parole officer, but then he also, yeah, I think he still was like he has some kind of involvements in military still. He wasn't even ex-military, but he was like a positive dude. You know what I mean? So and then I was like getting invited to the White House and all this stuff and doing the
But
murals
not
and being
immediately upon leaving jail, you weren't. So
yeah.
were you?
Yeah, I started popping ASAP. ASAP. I was in a halfway house on getting on it. I was on the news all the time. That's how Agnes Gunn seen me all the way in New York and all this. I know. I'm trying to tell you, I was invited to the White House when Obama
How
was
did
there.
you get seen and
I don't.
discovered in Halfway
I don't.
House?
I was out there doing murals. Oh, I
Okay.
landed a job with mural arts while I was in prison. So as soon as because for parole, you have a parole meeting, and I'm not talking about being on parole. You have to have a parole meeting before you leave prison, right? And then one of the things they be like, so what you gonna do for work? And this is how they get people because a lot of dudes, you in prison, how you gonna get a job? How you got
Mm.
a job set up? But Mural Arts of Philadelphia came to the prison and was doing they had like some inmates that was making murals in the inside. And I wasn't part of that program, but I went there and called an unauthorized area because I had a plan that I was going to be an artist. And
So
then I heard them art
Mural
thing.
Arts of Philadelphia, you were aware of this and you
Yeah,
targeted them, and
yeah,
then that was your springboard.
yeah. They had a
Okay.
meeting and
All right.
I
See,
got
this is the journalist in me
yeah,
peeling back the onion layers, because if I was the parole officer, I might say, okay, listen, I know this guy, Russell. He made this plan. And for a while, he was just telling me, no, it just happens, the universe. And yes, the universe is a big part of it, but he also had a plan. I wanted to know what that plan was. And finally, he told me, yes, there was this organization, Mural Arts of Philadelphia. I started doing some stuff on the inside for them. And when I came to the outside, there it was. And I could springboard up from
no,
that.
I went unauthorized area. Like I wasn't
Okay.
even their program. I like when I just got there. Like I went
Right.
above the line to get
But you
where I
knew
need.
that they existed and you knew to
Yeah,
go there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
See, that's the kind of information which people may or may not have, right? And I'm just thinking in terms of, so let's say, for example, we were this therapeutic riding place And maybe there were artists coming out of jail. And maybe we would have a series of mural walls that these artists could, that maybe there'd even be some funding to pay them to put together some art on these things so they could turn to their parole officer and say, see, I'm doing this and I'm getting paid for this. And then perhaps we would then invite people from the art world to come and look at some of these murals. And then you've suddenly harnessed your own experience to help people coming out. And then you might say, well, okay, they're not all artists. So what are the other equivalents for the other arts? What are the other equivalents for music? Or what are the other equivalents? And then, well, some of them are budding scientists. What are some of those things that we could do? And one could put perhaps together that sort of an infrastructure around a therapeutic place, a therapeutic riding place, where they also perhaps have to look after the horses who's going to help these kids or whatever. So there's give back. But suddenly I'm seeing what one might do for those people coming out. Now, as you say, they'd have to want to. You can take a horse to water, you can't make it drink. I mean, you can only give the opportunities. But that plan that you had in jail and that you then executed, someone else might not know, but you could make that available in a way like that. That's the sort of how my brain goes. It's like one person's success story can become a more general success story. Yeah, access again. So much of it seems to come down to access. And access seems to come down to knowing what to access. That something like Mural Arts Philadelphia even exists. Like I didn't know that until you told me, you know? Yeah.
Most murals produced in the world.
Is that
Philadelphia mural.
so? And they do them on they do them on buildings around in the city as sort of.
Big world. They do the most in the world.
That's so interesting. Do you know the history of that? Why it's Philadelphia and who started it?
Oh, her name is Jane Golden, and she started about 40 years ago. And they just be pumping murals out. And then like me seeing the murals in the city and me having my interest in art. I always was interested in art since a kid. So we like intrigued by the art and wondering like how they do these murals so big on a whole big building. And the things that used to cross my mind as I'm like walking in the street and would see the art. So once I heard that they was like in the prison doing work in the prison, and then like to get into the program, you would have to wait for somebody to die or whatever to get in because it was only limited spots. So they would either get out. It was quite a few lifers that was a part of that program. And it was quite a few programs in there that like it's something like the lifers had. And it'd be hard for you to get in. So if you had like a 5 to 10 and something like that, you wouldn't get in a lot of these programs or these opportunities. It seemed like it was kind of set up for them guys that were going to be there long term. So I go to the library and then I sneak into the auditorium where the art is being done. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I just knew I needed to get to them people because it's like I was telling you, I had no knowledge of no art, nobody. So I didn't like that was my only thing I knew about. Like, oh, these people do art. That's the art world. I was thinking that was the art world. And mirrors is not the art world. Like art world is like MoMA and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But that's what I was thinking. And it was like a stepping stone. It was like a start.
Do you how do they get the permission to put the murals up on these buildings? What's the process by which they get
Oh,
that?
yeah, she was really connected with the city and things. So she just knew people to connect with, like the higher ups to like the folks, because that's what it's all about too. That's an important thing to figure out. You have to find the people who you need to connect with to even get the ball rolling. And then just do the work after everything's set up. Structure has to happen first and then you do it.
Something which I agree, something which I've often thought about with riding arenas is that they can function very well as art galleries. And in fact, I've known some people do that where they put down a floor and then use the riding arena for a different type of event. Could be a music event, could be an art event, whatever. And that, these places could be showcasing local artists and selling their work and showcasing their work and bringing the art world into the therapeutic riding world, or bringing other worlds in together. That often what's so difficult is these things get separated. No, we're just a horse place. Like, well, yeah, but you could be like Starbucks with local artists on the walls, couldn't you? You know, why do things have to be separated in this way? And it sometimes takes people coming in from radically different worlds. You come in from a radically different world. I come at the therapeutic and the horse world from a slightly different place because of my background with journalism and activism. So we might have ideas that an average place might not have, that then can go on to become the norm. So I'm just wondering, if we put this program together, then we should absolutely have these opportunities, I think, for people coming out to work on, showcase, and produce various types of art, which are then, included in the program. Are you working on any murals right now? Are you still doing that?
No, I'm not working on any murals, but I told you about I need to put a piece together for a Boca. I'm like in museums now, so murals I don't really do. Oh, but we proposed to, and I've been accepted to the second round about doing some public art. And oh, we have to leave soon too. We have 10 minutes. How far is that thing? It's 10 minutes away.
Okay, well, we're approaching the 2 hour mark, so we can wrap up because there's clearly we're going to continue this conversation anyway. But okay, so your career is going. You're down there in Wellington. We are, of course, talking about what might we do to bring our worlds together, and that's exciting. You need to run off to do your next art appointment today.
like a
What
meeting.
what do you think, if you were going to, the people who are watching this right now and listening to this are largely probably female, working with horses in the USA, in the UK, thinking about how they might help foster kids, how they might look at people coming out of the system that you've come out of, etc. What are like your closing words for them? What advice do you have in terms of reaching out to the person that was you as a kid, the person that was you incarcerated, the person that is you now?
I would just say, cause like sometimes I meet people. I met a few lady friends, and they be like, I work with kids and things like that." And sometimes I could tell when they like a genuine and they like a good person or whatever. And then for them to have that decision to do that line of work is like very important, because like me, like my experience, I didn't have a lot of support from I was in an unfortunate kind of a thing. But those who take that work, but then they really care, that's like half the battle. So then after that, it's all about just keep pushing, reach out for help for whatever you're doing. Don't just put all the burdens on their back. You know what I'm saying? And like basically just that. Just keep at it and connect with others like minded, because it'd be kids and things that like really need, like really though. So that work is like, when I be hearing like those type people that want to help like foster kids or young kids or troubled kids, like they're more heroes in my mind than like athletes and things like that. To me, it's like they're just paying like a sport, and they was interested as a sport and as a kid, and then they like entertaining people, whatever. But like those folks that really like do things that help the humanity, I mean, kids and like doctors and stuff like that, is the thing I really tip my hat off to. So
Mm.
I would say for them to just keep on pushing and don't do it alone. Like reach out to other people that's doing that kind of work, and think of ways of how you can take it to the next level. Because it could be overwhelming if you just go into a thing and let it just overwhelm you. When you're trying to do it by yourself and things like that.
And if someone had said, just before you go, if let's say you had been lucky enough to get out to a program like this when you were a kid, what would you like to have been said to you as the 8-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old Russell?
I don't know. That's a hard question, because it's like, what kind of words, because somebody could have told me at a young age that would have been so
What kind of experience do you think would have benefited you the most?
just that environment, just a caring environment, and with just like exploring different things, exposing me to different things when it comes to like the nature, the horses, a thing like that. A staff of people that's like caring, and we teaching them things like, oh, we mentioned spirituality or just knowledge.
Mm.
And just a caring environment that's like nurturing to the growth of the kid, the way you would grow a plant. Since we talk about nature, the way you would take care of the horses properly. You know what I'm saying? A whole system of that. Just being there is enough. because those words and things like that and experiences are going to happen within that kind of environment that's created properly. When I had mentioned earlier about structure, when it's built on good structure, it will stand.
Perfect. All right, my friend. I know you need to run, so thank you so much for this.
You already know.
To be continued, I think.
Yes, I look forward to like coming in your neck of the woods.
It's going to happen.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. If you like what we're doing here, please do like, subscribe, tell a friend. It so helps us to get this valuable work done and the message of equine assisted stuff out there. And if you're interested in more conversations, you might want to check out our Live Free, Ride Free podcast. And if you'd like to support the podcasts, please go to rupertisaacson.com and click on the Patreon link. If you're a professional in the equine assisted field or are considering a career in the equine assisted field, you might want to check out our 3 certification programs: Horseboy Method, Movement Method, and Taquine Equine Integration. You can find all of those over on newtrailslearning.com. And finally, if you want to check out our cool rock and roll themed merch, back on rupertisaacson.com, please click on shop. You'll find all kinds of fun goodies there. And if you're looking for a way to spend time until the next podcast, you might want to consider reading the books that kicked all this off: The Horseboy, The Long Ride Home, and The Healing Land. So see you next time on Equine Assisted World. Join us for the adventure.